WWE also spent this week and, the majority of SmackDown honoring 25 years of Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, the game. And, I think I saw a lot of positive reactions to this, and but there are that undercurrent of people that don't like Triple H or what have you. But listen, 25 years of Triple H in WWE, he has accomplished a lot. Shawn Michaels alluded to that, like, hey, they don't do this for everyone, by the way, which that is the thing that sort of got me. I get that, I don't know if they would have done this if we weren't in this pandemic situation. That everybody's looking for content and ways to sort of stay relevant and keep things fresh out there. I know that firsthand from being with the Warriors during this time with no basketball games. So I think I think they really hit this even harder than they would have had there been regular scheduled wrestling with crowds and everything going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just sounds like, I hate to say the word filler, but they probably were like, okay, what are some like other type of segments that we can do in the performance center to fill up time that we don't have. I think for them, they probably don't want to do some longer matches because there's not a crowd there. So just there's not like an energy to feed off of with the crowd. So I've noticed some of the matches might be a little bit shorter than normal on Raw and SmackDown as of late. So I think for them, they're just trying to come up with some creative ways just to fill time and not bring so much attention to only the matches in the ring and just a constant reminder of no one in attendance. So what are some other things they can do? I noticed kind of a little more backstage promos, even comparing to like, AEW and Dynamite, what they've been doing. It's just a lot more video packages, and I'm all for that. As long as they're filling up their 2 to 3 hours per week for their TV shows, I'm fine with whatever it is. As long as it's something new and fresh that's entertaining, I'm down for it. But yeah, the Triple H segment, I was kind of like, out of the blue, I was like, what is this? 25 years? Like, why? Like, yeah, as Shawn Michaels said, they don't do this for everyone. So it was just like, okay, it's obviously Vince McMahon's son-in-law. Is that why he's getting this versus no one else who are definitely more deserving to be on the quote, like Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling? But the actual segment itself, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious, very funny, entertaining stuff.
Well, yeah, I think the undercurrent was sort of, and I think that's why Shawn Michaels alluded to it in terms of the why does Triple H get it and not some of these other wrestlers and stuff. But Triple H is definitely deserving.
Yeah.
And I enjoy. I wish they. I guess I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I'm glad they did it for Triple H, and I wish they did it for more people. I think especially in this time, if there's anniversaries of stuff coming up or whatever, in this date in wrestling history, as opposed to having filler matches or things like that, use this time to sort of educate your audience on the history of your brand. And so I think this was a good usage of that. The main segment, I'm not going to lie and say that it was some, huge home run or anything like that. I of course always love seeing Shawn Michaels, but I do like being completely honest. Okay. I wish they made him be more Shawn Michaels. I think Shawn is so like not wanting to sort of stoke the fires that he could come back for an in-ring thing or something like that he shows up, he's just rocking an NXT hat and stuff. Like he's not in Shawn Michaels like esque attire anymore or demeanor even really in a lot of ways. And I wish they had him be a little bit more in HBK character at times. But I'm not going to hate on seeing Shawn, and this certainly was better usage of him than when he had the segment with Enzo and Cass a couple of years ago or whatever it was. That was just brutal stuff. But I enjoyed Shawn roasting Triple H because it was sort of like a get back for Triple H roasting Shawn at the Hall of Fame. But to me, the best part of the whole thing was Vince.
Really? Okay.
I thought he was the best part. I thought, I saw a lot of people claiming that he came off like rambling and like very old. And while, yes, his voice is not as strong and sort of authoritative as maybe it was in years past, I thought he was coherent. I thought he was poignant. I love that he told both of them that he loved them. I thought that was really good stuff.
Yeah, I real quick, just jump back. I enjoyed the Stephanie call, the FaceTime.
Yes. Oh, dude, Stephanie with the lazy eye comment. Wow. Shot across the bow, Steph.
Do you think like everyone at home was like, oh? I'm just thinking
She went there. Yeah, no, that was a shot.
I was like waiting for you to text me, be like, oh no, she did it. Like just, but I thought that was really great, and just like Sean in the background, kind of like mocking her, making faces and stuff, which I enjoyed that. Like, and I get what you're saying about Shawn Michaels. Like, he's definitely at his older age. He comes off very more goofy,
Yes.
fun loving. Like, I don't know, maybe like your fun, goofy uncle, like at a family.
Yeah, he's not really HBK anymore.
Yeah.
Because I think like, and you see this in Shawn interviews and stuff too. And I think we talked about this a little bit. He doesn't want to put himself over anymore, and I think he's almost on this like in his mind, this like redemption tour in his own head that he doesn't want to be the guy that he was before he found God and found his true self. To where he has been told so many stories about what a prick he was that he's almost like overcorrecting with his humility and overcorrecting with his self-deprecation. That I wish you wouldn't do that. I mean, as like the hugest Shawn Michaels mark there is, it's like, no, dude, you're the GOAT. Like like when Kevin Nash I think put it so eloquently when he's been asked in several interviews, what do you say about Shawn Michaels? Michael Jordan of pro wrestling. And I think that is a great comparison, and I think even more highlighted, by this Last Dance documentary that they're doing on ESPN, because Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player ever, wasn't the greatest guy to be around, was obsessed with being the best. And that meant hurting some feelings. It meant being selfish at times. And I think that comparison, I don't know if that was what Nash was alluding to or not all those years ago, but it is so apt for Shawn. But now he is this very self-deprecating, very humble figure. And I love that, and I love that he is in such a good place spiritually and emotionally and mentally. But when you're on camera, I want to see Shawn Michaels.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I do agree with you. I think maybe all the years of like stuff from the 80s and 90s, in a way, it maybe kind of haunts him a little bit, and because I think a lot of people just that's all they remember him as, and I think he's doing his best to change that perception of him, even though there's been so many more years past that, like that little I'm trying to think. I want to sum it up. Like that time period is now much smaller compared to the rest of his life and his career. So I think he's always going to be fighting that battle of trying to prove people he's not that person anymore, or that's just such a small part of his life, and he doesn't be remembered for that. So I think, as you said, being humbled, he's much more self-deprecating, because it's like he's okay.
Well, and even post-retirement, like he's taken it to this whole another level. However, you rewind to when he had that in-ring segment with The Undertaker a year or two ago now, and that, like, he turned it on and was like that's the best segment, like, in terms of a promo with he and The Undertaker, that they've done in years.
Yes.
And so I know that's still in there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It just shows that's why he's so good. He's one of the greats, because it's just natural to him. And I think that's so fitting that he's one of the quote coaches or people behind the scenes now helping out NXT. And it shows NXT is arguably the best wrestling program out there right now. And you can say it's because Triple H and Shawn Michaels are two of the masterminds behind it all. And because, quote, they're two of the greatest of all time that really put wrestling over in the 90s and 2000. So, but for Shawn Michaels specifically, I think, as you said, like, I think he's trying to make up for that. And I think it probably hurts him a little bit that people always reflect on maybe the negative stuff from his past, and he's trying to change it. And I'm sure he has some, he's sorry for that, and he's trying to fix that. And I think, as you said, the way he portrays himself now or presents himself now to the fans, I think that's what he wants people maybe to focus on more, or just show there's another side to him that we don't know about. So I applaud him for that. I think, at the end of the day, what Sean's been doing, it shows that he's grown. He's becoming a better, or has become a better person over the years. And I think for anything, what he's doing for the business now, it's so amazing. Like what he did as a performer, awesome, amazing. And we can always watch that for years to come. But the fact that he's like paying it forward to the next generation of wrestlers, I applaud him for that as well. And we're so lucky to have him contribute to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't want to make this whole segment about Sean. I just,
I know.
I just couldn't help but notice, like, and I don't even think it's so much that he feels bad anymore. It's just that it's just grown over time. He's become this sort of like very self-deprecating character in retirement. But I think that is to more dissuade any hopes of him getting back in the ring. It's like, well, this guy can't go back in the ring. He's friggin', half goofy at this point. But I want to get back to the Triple H segment. The like FaceTime calls thing was a little, like, the Stephanie one was good. The Rick one was okay. The Road Dogg one kind of sucked. I liked the I did like the tossing to all of his WrestleMania accomplishments, and it was loss after loss. I thought that was hilarious. And was really really good, poking fun at Triple H's expense. And I think that should quiet some of the haters out there that they're just trying to like have this revisionist history about Triple H or anything like that.
I was just gonna say also, I think for anyone out there who's criticized Triple H, like, oh, okay, like, he was Shawn Michaels' friend, so with DX he was able to ride off Shawn Michaels' coattails and get success.
True.
And then in the early 2000s, he was kind of, quote, burying people. And then, he married Stephanie McMahon. So, he's Vince McMahon's son-in-law. That's why he gets all the titles and the long title reigns, and all the success is just handed to him on a silver platter. So I think there's a lot of, for years, he's been getting a lot of critique of like who he is and what, who's his family explains like why all the success he's been getting with WWE over the years. So maybe this whole segment was just to kind of let people know he can easily poke fun at himself and he knows what's going on. I'm sure he's read and heard all the comments throughout the years. And so this was a way, I think, to at least make fun of that. And he's like, you get what I'm saying? As far as it's this whole segment is like, sure, it's 25 years in the business with WWE, but at the same time, like, he's open to being made fun of as well. And it's like, he knows
that Shawn Michaels in him, that self-deprecating humor. It's what happens to DX in their old age. They all just become goofier and goofier.
But I was to say the Vince stuff I really enjoyed because, Vince was poking fun at some of the segments that maybe they came up with that didn't work. Talking about the Survivor Series with the
gobbledygooker.
Yeah, the big egg, and then the Katie Vick storyline, and even the Bailey This Year Live. And I did like how Vince said it wasn't Bailey's fault.
I like that a lot too. And like, that was a good catch by him.
Yes, and so for him, like, maybe, deep down he does have a lot of respect or love for Bailey as well. So I think that's cool that he acknowledged that, at least. Sometimes, and maybe that's his way of saying, like, they come up with these concepts and they just don't work, and it's no one's, fault, but maybe just the fans didn't react to it the way they thought it was going to do. So at least Vince, in his own way, self-deprecating as far as some of these features that he's came up with over the years. So, like I said, it was a very fun segment, just poking fun at, I think, their history and the ups and downs that they've all experienced. And I did enjoy Vince calling him Paul. Is that too? Like,
yeah, I don't particularly care for that. Again, when the cameras are rolling, he's freaking Triple H. That's something that's like a minor nitpick for me that I don't like. Like, I hated when Triple H called Ric Flair Richard Fleer, in his feud with Batista. I hated AJ Styles calling him Mark, calling Undertaker Mark and stuff like that. I don't. To me, there's still certain aspects of like kayfabe and like, your on-screen character is your on-screen character, and I want that thing to be real.
Yeah.
So it's Vince, so it's fine. But that part, I was like, he's Triple H. Come on,
Hunter.
I want to talk about some of our favorite Triple H memories, though. Our favorite memories of the game. I have a list of about 10 here, and they just sort of flowed from me. But I'm going to start with one of them here, and this is jumping ahead in his career. But I got a little bit of audio to play with it, so obviously. Triple H taking over DX was one of his big moments, still to this day in his career. And, invading WCW is another one. But when he became the Game and sort of his most long-lasting persona, which is the Game, the cerebral assassin, that kind of deal, it came on the heels of this promo that he cut with Jim Ross. And it was something that always stuck with me. It was like one of those first sort of, now people refer to them as pipe bomb promos, but it was in this pre-recorded Sunday Night Heat promo that was in the lead up to SummerSlam 1999 that really made him the Game. And so here we go.
You asked that China not be involved in this interview, and I'm just wondering why.
Why? Everybody wants to know why. You know what? Because this one is about me, JR. It's not about China or anybody else. It's about 4 weeks from now. It's about 28 days from now. It's about me getting what I want out of this business, and that is becoming the WWF champion.
So you're saying that in 4 weeks at SummerSlam, you will become the WWF champion without China's help?
You're right. I don't need anybody else, JR. This is about me. I don't need to be in a Kliq anymore. I don't need to be in DX anymore. This is about me. It's about me reaching my goals. And while we're at it, this goes back a long way, JR. This goes back to the Kliq. This goes back to Madison Square Garden. Me walking in the ring and saying goodbye to my friends.
That's 4 years ago.
You're damn right it's 4 years ago, and every day it's eating a hole in my stomach, JR. Every single day.
Watch your language a little.
What, you want me to shoot with this interview? I'm going to shoot with it. I'm going to tell you how I feel, whether you like it or not. It's about 4 years ago, Madison Square Garden. I walked to the ring to say goodbye to my friends, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels. Who got punished for that, JR? Me. I did. You know why? Because you didn't have the nobody in the office had that to do it to anybody else. They did it to me. Why? Because I was the easy one. I was the one that would take it. Good old Triple H, he'll rise to the occasion later on. Don't worry about it. He'll come through. We can take care of that now, punish him, get rid of that. He'll come back later. Well, you know what? That makes me sick in my stomach. Every time I look at you guys, it makes me sick to think what you did to me, holding me back. You guys talk about being students of the game. I am the game, JR. There is nobody that eats, sleeps, or breathes this business more than me.
That one will always just stick out to me. That was such great stuff from Triple H, and it really, it completely changed his whole persona.
Yeah, and I was going to say, he's a big fan of our show, kept referring to the Kliq right there.
Yeah, so, exactly.
It's awesome. He was foreshadowing what was the best wrestling show out there in the Kliq. So thank you, Triple H, for acknowledging us. But I like that he's, wrestling terms, shooting, and God, I just think about that 1999, just 4 years ago, and just saying, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, referencing them. And it's anytime, like for us marks out there, we hear like inside terms or language like that. It's always kind of cool, like, especially back then before the internet and everything. So like when we heard that live, I was like, oh my God, he was referencing all that stuff in real time. It's like, that's so cool. But yeah, very cool promo.
Yeah, that was definitely on my list of things. What are some of your favorite Triple H moments?
Well, even going back to this SmackDown episode, so April 1998, where they DX his version when he was leading it was gonna invade WCW. I remember watching that live, and I was like 8th grade. So I'm watching, and this is for us. I think part of why kayfabe was still a thing back in the 90s, because we didn't have like the internet the way it is today, where we see things for face value. And so I remember watching it in 8th grade and be like, oh my God, like these guys and gals from WWE are going to go over to WCW and trying to get invaded. And I was like, no way, this is awesome. This is like when worlds collide. Like I was like on the edge of my seat watching that episode. And I was thinking, well, there's going to be some reference on WCW that night. Of course there wasn't, but nonetheless, it was still just cool from their perspective of, quote, trying to break in and like make fun of them. And I mean, and it's like we haven't seen that again. I know the Bullet Club tried to do their own version a few years ago, but it wasn't the same because it was back then. WWE and WCW were the two biggest names, and it was like it was just unheard of one would acknowledge the other one like that and like try to invade like that. So Bullet Club, when they tried to do it a few years ago, it was such small time compared. It was more just for an episode of being the Elite, if anything.
Yeah,
So it was just for a YouTube video.
The Bullet Club, the Bullet Club are better served when they're doing their own thing in Japan and not because they're already even with the too sweet hand gesture, which is taken from the Kliq and then NWO and stuff like that. I think they would have been better served not doing that. Like there's a almost too much of what influenced you in what you're actually doing. But yeah, that invasion of WCW was one of the most indelible moments of that DX run and of the Monday Night Wars, and that's one that will I think in every Monday Night War retrospective, that one will always be on there. And that was when Triple H was leading DX. And, again, him taking over DX and that sort of the promo the night after WrestleMania 14 is another one. That was another one of, like, Triple H leveling up, like in his career. Now he's the leader of this faction. And really that invasion of WCW was another part of that sort of peak time period for him as the leader of D-Generation X at that time.
We saw the tank in person.
Jeep.
Or Jeep. Sorry.
So many people call it a tank. It was a Jeep.
Yeah, but it had the big gun on it.
Yeah, it had a big gun on it, but it was a Jeep.
Sorry.
No, you're not alone. So many people refer to it as a tank, but it was a Jeep.
But we saw the Jeep at on display at Access last year in New York City, so that was very cool. But also, Jimbo, real quick before I forget, I gotta acknowledge one of Triple H's greatest accomplishments when he formed the greatest tag team, the two-man power trip.
Oh my God!
Steve Austin,
Baby Huey. The backstory on that is way back early on in our friendship. I referenced the two-man power trip, and Baby Huey had no bleeping idea what the hell I was talking about. None clue.
I had a brain fart that day.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I was thinking because one of my favorite newer bands in the last few years I've gotten into, great thrash metal band from Texas called Power Trip. So at first I was thinking Power Trip, like what? Like my brain was not thinking correctly. Of course, and it wasn't like, and it was like not technically an official name for them, right? That was more just.
It was because Triple H got hurt before it could really sort of be cemented.
Yes.
But yeah, that was the two-man power trip. He and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I believe the original plan was that Triple H would go babyface out of that and feud with Steve. But, he got injured and he ended up having to come back in a different way. But, another big moment was Triple H. Triple H broke a WrestleMania streak in Anaheim, California at WrestleMania 2000. A very young Bimbo Jimbo was in attendance. It was my first WrestleMania I went to, and the streak that he broke was Triple H actually was the first heel to leave WrestleMania with the championship, and that was a pretty big deal at the time. And Triple H was just on this run, at that time he was putting on the best matches. He was really approaching the apex of that the game character. And everything like that, and it was this fatal four-way elimination match. It was Big Show. It was a returning Mick Foley from retirement. It was The Rock, and it was Triple H. There was the McMahon in every corner. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the smart money was on The Rock to leave with the championship. Of course, Vince would screw The Rock, and Triple H would leave with the title. But that was a big moment for him in his career for sure. I mean, one, it was main eventing WrestleMania, and two, it was leaving as a heel with the championship. That was a big one.
He won without losing a WrestleMania, as we saw this past Friday. He's lost a lot of WrestleMania.
Record amount of losses at WrestleMania. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. What else you got for Triple H moments?
Well, I will say this with Evolution.
Yeah.
And first things first, before I forget, one thing I always love about Triple H is from a music standpoint, his love for heavy metal, hard rock, all that stuff. And for me, when he came, when he debuted as the Game, and he got Lemmy and the rest of the boys and Motorhead to do his theme song, The Game, my brother, that's one of his all-time favorite bands is Motorhead.
Yeah.
And because of him, I've loved Motorhead. We've seen him a bunch of times in concert. And so to hear Lemmy's voice on WWE TV and pay-per-views, and I was so blown away by that. I was like, this is awesome. It's like, wow, one of the wrestlers likes what we're into, what music-wise. Like, that was such a, like, for me, a relatable aspect of it. Like, oh my God, he loves Motorhead. And so he did The Game, and then he did The King of Kings, and then he got Lemmy to do
Evolution.
Evolution song. I'm like, this is awesome. And like Motorhead released those songs on their albums as well, or I mean, at least the game one on one of their albums. So
that was a real thrill at X7 to hear them live. Like that was super rad that they did that.
So for me, and even to this day, like, you know, Triple H, when he does interviews and people take the time, like he's done interviews, I think was on Loudwire, like these rock music websites, and he'll talk about his love for metal and hard rock, and to this day he brings that influence to NXT and gives it that little bit of an attitude, like some of the NXT Loud theme songs for their takeovers. He'll get like metal bands and hard rock bands to do the theme song, and I'm like, that's so cool. And he's done in recent interviews talked about like he brings that to the table. Like he'll get music sent to him and they review which song to do. Like Slipknot is the theme song for NXT right now, and it's like, that's so cool. Just his influence of bringing Motorhead to WWE and to like a whole different audience. So cool. But with that being said, Evolution, that time period in Triple H's career, that was his way of kind of doing his own version of
the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, the Four Horsemen or Champion or Ric Flair from like the 80s. So that was like a way of like paying tribute, but like doing his own take on it, his own spin on it. So I thought that was very cool. Like Evolution was like a new version of the Four Horsemen, but you know, Triple H, you know, he had the more fluffy hair and like he's wearing the suits again. And so I thought that time period of Evolution really was Triple H kind of just thanking and paying tribute to the people of the 80s and the Four Horsemen and the NWA, or just the wrestling territory. So I thought that was him being like a true, like, you know, he was mostly that he had the big gold belt most of the time during that time period as well. So I think just overall, just what he tried to symbolize at that point, I thought that was very cool for the business.
I think an underrated thing that's not talked about enough in terms of making him as a guy, as the guy, was he was the one to originally retire Mick Foley. And, you know, that was, you know, his feud with Mick Foley, Mankind, Cactus Jack was really a big-time premiere feud that really put him on the map. And ending his career, you know, was one, I didn't expect it at the time, just watching as a casual viewer, because I thought that, you know, Mankind, Mick Foley's career would be continuing on. But that was another big level up moment for him that I feel like isn't talked about as much as maybe it should be now. Maybe because Mick Foley's come back so many times after that. But that was a big one for him. And I think one that we've sort of danced around that maybe, you know, I was thinking about this as we were watching SmackDown. I've reflected on this a lot over, you know, recent years. But even with everything that Triple H has done in the ring, which, you know, his list of accomplishments are really, you know, incredibly impressive, and you know, he is in rarefied air with everything that he's been able to do in pro wrestling. But I think what will be truly his legacy after he's gone is NXT. Is everything that he's done in terms of being the brainchild alongside Dusty Rhodes with NXT and what that has meant to pro wrestling and to WWE. It might be the most impressive thing that he's accomplished. And so I really have to applaud him for that. And I think, you know, there was a lot of hate online in the you know, internet, the online wrestling community for Triple H. But I think some of that has mitigated because there's just no denying his fingerprints over this product that is pretty universally loved by wrestling fans. And so really just, I mean, I think that might be number one. When it's all said and done for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, Jimbo, you and I, you know, and anyone that's a fan of wrestling, we know everything that Triple H has accomplished as a competitor, from, you know, when he first debuted as like the Royal Highness, or whatever you want to call it, that
Greenwich Blue Blood.
Yeah, and I mean, I for me, like when he lost to Ultimate Warrior, that always stuck out to me as a kid. But then the DX stuff, and then when he came back as like the badass, with the cut off denim vest and the leather jacket under, like I always thought that was cool, like the rock, rock and roll side of him. But then with the Evolution stuff, and then DX reunion with Shawn and that run, like there's so many different periods and of him that have all been successful, and at the end of the day we're always very entertaining. But yeah, what you say with NXT, that could be his greatest accomplishment and gift to the business, as far as from him as one of the founders or foundation for NXT, and he's paying it forward and developing the next set of stars for the next generation of fans out there. So that's the thing. It's like he did his time in the ring. He's accomplished what he can, but now he's creating new stars for the next, like all these newer kids that are tuning in to WWE now. Like if you're at the age of 10 or something, you probably don't know much about Triple H's career, but you know a ton about Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream and all this stuff that you can argue that's going to be like his family tree. You know how like in sports, there's always like in football, like the coaching tree, like Bill Walsh and then everyone who's came after him. It's like you can argue Triple H, like the wrestling tree he's creating now with NXT and like all these guys he's influenced, and then who are maybe training the next set of wrestlers, and then down the road the next generation after that. So NXT, what they're accomplishing right now is really in many ways keeping, I think, the business alive and well. I mean, even now I think you and I and a lot of people were more excited about the Wednesday Night War than anything else. And what is that? Oh, it's NXT versus AEW. I think a lot of people are more interested in watching that than Raw and SmackDown, and where's Triple H mostly focused on Wednesday night. So, all that together, what he's doing right now is really helping keeping the life, the blood going in wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all that combined. It's such fun stuff. And like I said, that's his greatest accomplishment, is helping keeping the wrestling business going.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what I mean when I say that when it's all said and done, despite everything that he did in the ring, what might be his greatest accomplishment is NXT, because that is going to continue long after he's wrestled maybe his last match already, but certainly it'll continue after that point. And maybe there's no telling how long it will last or how long the impact of it will last, and that's really just a testament to his. There's a point in that promo, the I Am the Game promo, where he talks about nobody eats, breathes, and sleeps this business like I do.
Yeah.
And that's, people can make argument with that, but he certainly does eat, breathe, and sleep the business. And that is why he fit in with the Kliq, because that's what the Kliq was about. Mm-hmm. And that is why NXT is so good, because you talked about it already. Triple H had this love for Ric Flair and the territory days, the NWA and all that stuff. And he loves the old school. He loves the good storytelling. And you see that throughout NXT. So, I mean, it just really, that to me will be his number one legacy in pro wrestling. I want to move on from the game. I mean, we could talk about it for 25 years or whatever. But, congrats to him for having the most losses at WrestleMania. So... Good for you.
His matches with Undertaker too.
Yeah, three of them at WrestleMania. They don't ever want to reference the first one, which was at X7, which in my opinion still to this day is their best encounter at WrestleMania. Go back, do yourself a favor, go back and watch that match. That was a great match.